You must always believe that life is as extraordinary as music says it is. It's the soul's duty to be loyal to its own desires. It must abandon itself to its master passion. I myself have never been able to find out precisely what feminism is. I only know that people call me a feminist whenever I express sentiments that differentiate me from a doormat or a prostitute. The main difference between men and women is that men are lunatics and women are idiots. The trouble about man is twofold. He cannot learn truths which are too complicated, he forgets truths which are too simple. There was a definite process by which one made people into friends, and it involved talking to them and listening to them for hours at a time. Before a war, military science seems a real science, like astronomy, but after a war it seems more like astrology. People call me a feminist whenever I express statements that distinguish me from a doormat. Everyone realizes that one can believe little of what people say about each other, but it is not so widely realized that even less can one trust what people say about themselves. Just how difficult it is to write biography can be reckoned by anybody who sits down and considers just how many people know the real truth about his or her love affairs. It isn't only living people who die, it is great stretches of living, which can die even when the people who lived there still exist. For the sake of my country, and perhaps a little for the sake of my soul, I have given up the deep peace of being in opposition. I had come to Yugoslavia to see what history meant in flesh and blood. Reason's a thing we dimly see in sleep. She did not suddenly start being disagreeable this afternoon, she was so good at it. She had evidently practiced whatever are the scales and arpeggios of rudeness every day of her life. The world had gone too far in its enthusiasm for moderation and the thing had to be stopped. There is, of course, no reason for the existence of the male sex except that sometimes one needs help with moving the piano. She understood children, and knew that they were adults handicapped by a humiliating disguise and had their adult qualities within them. Now I recall my emotions at that moment. Children seem to me a remarkable race. They want so much to murder so many people, and they so rarely murder anybody at all. We discussed works of art by our meaninglessness, our diffuseness in time which lets us drift through 70 years and 10 without a quarter as much significance as a picture establishes instantaneously. She looked as if she were about to burst into tears, but she was wonderful at catching the ball of her own mood in midair. Each of us has always hoped that a stranger would come who would scatter holy water on the image of the other and lay it forever. My work expresses an infatuation with human beings. I don't believe that to understand is necessarily to pardon, but I feel that to understand makes one forget that one cannot pardon. The stumbling weighty hostility of bears, the incorporated rapacity of wolves. Their faces were clay-colored and featureless, yet not stupid, they might have been shrewd turnips. Dame Chichely Isabel Fairfield, the 21st of December 1892 to the 15th of March 1983, known as Rebecca West, or Dame Rebecca West, in London, England, and grew up in a home full of intellectual stimulation, political debate, lively company, books and music. Her mother, Isabella, a Scotswoman, was an accomplished pianist but did not pursue a musical career after her marriage to Charles Fairfield. The Anglo-Irish Charles had been a Confederate stretcher-bearer at the Siege of Richmond in the U.S. Civil War, and had returned to the UK to become a journalist of considerable reputation but financial incompetence. He deserted his family when Chichele was 8 years old. He never rejoined them, and died impoverished and alone in a boarding house in Liverpool in 1906. When Chichele was 14, the rest of the family moved to Edinburgh, Scotland, where Chichele was educated at George Watson's Ladies' College. She had to leave school in 1907 due to a bout of tuberculosis. She chose not to return after recovering from the illness, later describing her schooling at Watson's as akin to a prison. Rebecca West was a British author, journalist, literary critic and travel writer. An author who wrote in many genres, West reviewed books for The Times, The New York Herald Tribune, The Sunday Telegraph and The New Republic, and she was a correspondent for The Bookman. Her major works include Black Lamb and Grey Falcon 1941. On the History and Culture of Yugoslavia, A Train of Powder 1955, her coverage of the Nuremberg trials, published originally in The New Yorker. The Meaning of Treason, first published as a magazine article in 1945 and then expanded to the book in 1947, later The New Meaning of Treason 1964, a study of the trial of the British fascist William Joyce and others, The Return of the Soldier 1918. A Modernist World War I novel, and the Aubrey Trilogy of autobiographical novels, The Fountain Overflows 1956, This Real Night published posthumously in 1984, and Cousin Rosamund 1985. Time called her, indisputably the world's #1 woman writer, in 1947. She was made CBE in 1949, and DBE in 1959. In each case, the citation reads, writer and literary critic. She took the pseudonym, Rebecca West, from the rebellious young heroine in Rosmersholm by Henrik Ibsen. She was a recipient of the Benson Medal. West suffered from failing eyesight and high blood pressure in the late 1970s, and became increasingly frail. Her last months were mostly spent in bed, at times delirious and other times lucid. She complained that she was dying too slowly. She died on the 15th of March 1983, and is buried at Brookwood Cemetery, Woking. She is honored with a blue plaque at Hope Park Square, Edinburgh, her childhood home, which also provided the setting for her novel The Judge.